Okay, so I'm going to show you everything you need to know as a no or low coder that uses tools like make.com or n8n about web scraping and bright data. So first off, what is web scraping and how does it work? So the steps that a web scraper generally takes is you'll pick a website like LinkedIn that you want to scrape information from. Then you send a request to that website basically asking, can I have access to this web page? If you get accepted, then you get the web page. If you don't get accepted, then you've been blocked, and that's when proxies come in. I'm going to give you a brief overview of what proxies are in just a second. But if you've been accepted, then you get that web page. And then once you get the web page, you scrape and look through, or the scraper looks through all of the information through the code on that website. So say we're wanting to scrape a LinkedIn profile's posts. It would look through all of the code of that web page to find the text to their posts, to find the images to their posts, and maybe even the comments to each one of their posts. This is what the scraper will be looking for in the code, usually HTML, within this LinkedIn website. So then it finds the data, like I just mentioned, and then it extracts the data, it pulls the information out and formats it nicely for us as humans to be able to comprehend and organize much nicer. And then you can repeat as needed. You can repeat for as many different LinkedIn profiles as you want. Right, and it doesn't just have to be with LinkedIn, that was just an example. It can be for any website you would like. And now going into a brief overview of what proxies are. They're a pretty big thing in web scraping. I'm not going to get too in depth because we are no coders and low coders, so I'm just going to give a very high level overview. So a proxy in web scraping, I want you to think of as a middleman between your computer and a website you are trying to scrape. So an easy way to think about it is imagine you're scraping a website like LinkedIn. If you ask a website too many times from the same IP address, the website might block you. So what is an IP address? It's like a unique home address to your computer that is unique to your computer. And websites use your IP address or your computer's home address to identify how many times you've accessed their website and how many times you have requested information and things like that of their website. If you use the same IP address too many times, the same at home address to your computer too many times, then you can risk getting blocked. So this is where proxies come in. Proxies hide your real IP address and sends the information on your behalf, sends the request on your behalf. So it looks like someone else is asking. So you basically have proxies that have access to a whole bunch of different IP addresses, a variety of different IP addresses. That's not yours. So then you can send information. So they can send information on your behalf using different IP addresses, different computer or network home addresses. And so we use proxies to avoid getting blocked, like mentioned before, and to bypass geo restrictions. So some data might only be available in certain countries. Um, so for example, if I live in the USA and I cannot have access to any of the data within France, to get that data, I would use a proxy and basically say, I want a proxy that is located in France, and maybe I want to choose a city. So maybe I say, I want to get a proxy that's located in France and then in Paris. So France, Paris, so that I can scrape information from there. So that's what you would request or you would define in your proxy. You would say, hey, I want that proxy. It would then go ahead and find one for you, and then you can scrape while being located in France online, but when in reality, your computer and your real IP address is in the USA. So it's a way you can manipulate the location of your IP address, so you can get a wider range of information. And then, of course, you can also scrape faster. So you can use multiple different proxies that lets you send more requests at the same time. Because, of course, with one proxy, you can only send so many requests before you get blocked or you have to switch. So using multiple different proxies or multiple different home addresses to a computer or a network you can scrape much, much faster. And then down here, I have a bit more information that goes a bit more in depth for those of you who want to look into this. But I'm not going to go into this for now. You can look at this if you want. You have access to this page. So now heading into Bright Data, let me go to the home page here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll search in Bright Data. We'll need to head over to brightdata.com. I'll take you guys in step by step. Then you'll need to create an account if you haven't already. I've created an account, so I'm just going to click Use the Dashboard. Okay, so on the home page, you can see there's an AI agent or an AI that you can chat with about Bright Data. If you have any issues, you just simply consult with it like you would ChatGPT to say hi, and you can talk about if you're having any issues or you want to find where something is. The AI has generally been pretty good for me, so yeah, it's an AI. Many softwares have it, and it's definitely useful to have. Now going down to the proxies and scraping section, we are not going to be looking into this page really at all. Some of this information I've talked about in here, if you guys wanted to look into it, like these residential proxies, the 4 different types of proxies that Bright Data offers, I've also put in there for those of you who want to look at it. But for us, really, as no and low coders, we don't really need to understand this too much. So this page for us is not something I'm going to take you guys through. And then heading down to web scrapers, this is where I spend most of my time. This is kind of the important page in my eyes for us no and low coders. Here you can see a log of our past runs. So these are all my past runs of scrapers I've ran. So here, if I click on one, you get redirected to the scraper itself and taken to the log section where you can also see all of your past runs for the specific scraper. In this case, I was scraping Twitter for posts, and the way you can access this data, unfortunately, you don't get access to it in Bright Data's UI. You have to download it in one of these different formats, and then you can view it on your computer. So this is a log of all of your past runs. Then you have a dictionary. This is just showing the success rate and how much times these things get filled in, right? And initiate, this is basically where you can initiate the scraper within the UI of Bright Data without making an API request. You can just fill in the inputs. The inputs are going to look a little different. You can delete inputs here. If you delete all of them, you just add a new one and then type in whatever fields you would like to type in. Usually when testing, I also like to limit the result to just one, and then I'll click Start Collecting. These settings I've never ever used or worried about, so yeah, I haven't done anything with these. So I've always had those checked off, and I have this checked on every time, include errors report with the result, just so I can see what the error is if there did happen to be an error. So those are the 2 results and 2 checkboxes I always turn on. This is always on, include errors with report, and limit, I always turn this on when I'm testing, and even sometimes when I make an API request if I don't want to scrape hundreds and hundreds or even thousands of records. And now heading back to my scrapers, we get redirected to this page. There's customers also bought. We're not going to look into this at the moment because where we are going to go is to the web scraper library. Tickets here is just giving a support ticket. If you want to request something or have an issue, you'll just go to this page to request a ticket. So yeah, this is just support. There we go, just support page. Logs, again, logs of your whole past runs. Here is a dedicated view to it, and then web scraper library. This is where I spend most of my time looking through all of the built-in scrapers. Bright Data has many built-in scrapers, and this is where I spend much of my time scrolling through here looking for cool scrapers that we can build. You can build your own web scraper or request a custom web scraper. So requesting a custom web scraper means that Bright Data will build a completely custom web scraper on behalf of you, and building a web scraper means that you build it yourself, which of course we're not going to get into because then it kind of defeats the purpose of no and low code. So here you can just search up and look for all the scrapers you would like. I'm going to create a connection with one of these scrapers. I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to show you exactly how you can connect these to make.com and n8n. But before I do that, I'm going to show you the web datasets page. In this page, this is basically I want you to think of it as a marketplace for scrapers. So you can basically purchase data that Bright Data has already scraped. So if we click on here, LinkedIn People Profiles, you can see that Bright Data has already scraped 618 or almost 618 million records. That's 618 million profiles off LinkedIn. And basically what you can do here is you can purchase this information. So you're basically just purchasing information. You've got descriptions of what the information includes, along with some other information, just to see really what kind of information you're purchasing, along with a snippet of the type of data you can expect when you purchase. You can see the minimum order is $250. You just click proceed to purchase, and then you'll purchase as many as you would like. So all this web datasets section is a place where you can purchase data. That's really all it is. My IDE scrapers, this is where you can develop your own scrapers. Again, this is something we're not going to look into because we are not coders. And here is the specific dataset marketplace, which is back to here from what we saw before. Okay. Back to web tickets once again in this page. Now if we come back in account settings, this is the last thing I'm going to show. Under API keys, this is where you can get access to your API keys. Proxy manager users, I believe I've talked about a little bit within this Notion page. This basically allows you to add users that don't have access to the entire account, so they don't have admin access, but you can give them access to specific proxy ports. I also discussed what proxy ports are. It's just basically you can give people specific access to a specific proxy port, or just think of it as a specific proxy. So for example, you could give Bob over here, you could give Bob access to a proxy that is based in France. We could give Bob access to the proxy that is based in France, Paris, that we were talking about before. And then he can manage all of the information that proxy handles, and only that proxy. He doesn't have information to any other information across the entire account. So you can assign users to specific proxies that you create around the world, and whatever proxies are handling whatever data you set them up to be. And then under notifications, an interesting thing about here is you can enable whatever notifications you would like to be notified for, and you can also add a webhook. So say you got an API notification. If you added a webhook here and added the webhook URL, then this webhook will be notified whenever an API notification was sent through Bright Data, or whatever ones you have ticked. So in this case, if I got any of these notifications and I added a webhook, this webhook will be notified whenever a notification comes through, which is interesting. I've never seen this before, but I think it could definitely come in helpful. Then, of course, you have all of the normal settings things that many apps have. Nothing too important there. Also, billings page there. And now I think what I'm going to do is head back and actually connect a web scraper to make.com and n8n. So we're going to go back to web scrapers, into web scraper library. And I guess let's just do LinkedIn, because we've been using LinkedIn examples before. I'm going to collect profiles by URL. So we have all of these different scrapers you can see here. And here under ready to use datasets, this is the place where you can purchase information that I was talking about before. And you can also go to the full dataset marketplace there to purchase information. But we don't want to purchase information. We want to scrape it ourselves from scratch. So I'm going to choose one of these scrapers and I'm going to choose collect by URL. You'll then get two options, no code scraper or scraper API. So no code scraper, usually in practice, this is what I'll do. I will go no code scraper, click next. This is the first step I'll do. Then we get sent back to this page that we saw before. And I would delete all of these. And then, so we're scraping LinkedIn profiles, right? So I'm going to head over to linkedin.com. I'm going to go onto my profile. Okay, so we'll come over to my LinkedIn, and then basically I would copy this URL, and then I will add an input. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want to test and ensure that I have the right inputs before making an API request to make.com and n8n. And then the count is 1. Can I limit? You won't be able to limit because it's only one profile. So then I'm going to click Start Config. And basically now what it's doing is it's scraping, right? So I'm going to test within Bright Data first that I'm putting in the right inputs before I move to make.com. And the reason I do this is because if I start by making an API request, an HTTP request to make.com or n8n, and then I get an error on there within those applications on my first run, then I'm unsure whether it is a error with my inputs or with the connection or what it might be, right? But if I test it within their application first, within the third-party app, I can know, hey, is it something wrong with my input or is it something wrong with something else? Because really the only thing that could be wrong if I test in the third-party application is something with my input, like the URL I just put in from my LinkedIn, this URL, or whatever input that the scraper requires, right? So I test in here first to make sure I have everything correct and I know what I'm inputting into the scraper is right. And then now I know it's right. You can see here I can download once again, but I can see here number of records is 1, so it's scraped my profile, which is good because it has 1 record. Number of inputs is also 1 because I inputted 1 URL. We also get a file size, the success rate. So sometimes you might input a whole bunch of different URLs to scrape profiles. I'll just use this as an example. And some profiles, the scraper might not be able to scrape, right? So it might get blocked or something might go wrong and the success rate will go down. This case, it was 100%, which is good. Then we get a collection time, the timestamp, the scraper name, the status, and the snapshot ID. The snapshot ID can be used to download the information programmatically, but we're going to be using, or usually what I do is connect a webhook, which I can also show you guys how to do because it took me a while to figure it out. So now I know it works. What I'm going to go do is I need to head back to web scrapers, head back into web scraper library. I'm going to go back to the LinkedIn one because this time we're going to choose a different method, the same one here. Then I'm doing scraper API this time. I'm going to click next. Now this view looks a little bit more overwhelming, so don't worry about that. This is an example output that you can expect, just a bit more information you can look at, but this is really nothing we need to worry about, right? So the first thing we're going to do is come straight over to API request builder. Here we can build our API request, right? So the first thing I always do is for testing, I delete these inputs until there's only one. And you'll notice here in the right-hand side in this authenticated request section, all of this will start to change as I delete these. You can see there, it got smaller, smaller, and smaller. Now there's only one LinkedIn URL, and this got drastically smaller, which is good for when I want to put the information into an HTTP request in make.com and then start requesting. I want to start requesting with the bare minimum amount of information so that if there was an error, I can really narrow down the issue and isolate the issue. And the good thing about this is that, oh, let me go back, is that this updates automatically when you update this, like the fields in here. So I think I'm going to start just with this. Now in here, this is where we get the information to put into our HTTP request. So I'm going to head over to make.com, click the plus icon, go write data. This one's not going to be HTTP because here we have a make an API call, which is essentially an HTTP request. So we need a URL. Well, where do we find the request URL? This is at the bottom here, this bottom part. So I want to copy this all between the quotes, right there. And we're going to paste this in here. This is already configured the way we would want it to be configured, right? The method is going to be post. Then the header, we're not going to add headers. The body is going to be this. Everything between the square brackets is JSON. And that's everything after this D as well. And what I do to format this JSON to make it look better is I'm actually going to copy this and I go to jsonformatter.org. This just basically makes it look nicer for myself and it makes it more readable. I'm going to copy that, head back into make and paste that in the body. Now here, this is where we can put in the URL to the account or accounts. You can add multiple different accounts here, but I won't get into that because I just want to show you guys how you can connect everything. Authorization, usually you would have to add this header, but because of make.com, we already have the Bright Data connection right here, so we shouldn't need to do that. And now what we can do is we can test this. So Command Enter to run. Okay, so we got an error. So if you notice, in the description here on make.com, it says enter a path relative to this, to https brightdata.com. So we don't actually need this in the request URL. We need the path, everything after the /. So we can delete this entire first part, and now it will work. Zoom out there, click save, Command Enter, and now it's run. We get outputted with a body, snapshot ID. This is what we can use to retrieve the data, if you wanted to. And to confirm it's running, we can come back to web scrapers. And I'm going to refresh here. It might have already finished because it's only one profile. It's already finished. That was very quick. I'm going to run this again just so you guys can see. You can see here, a status is changed to running in my web scrapers under web scrapers. And then you can also click on this, close this, head over to logs. When you're in logs, you can see the scraper is running. Right, and then you can just wait for it. And once it's finished running, which it has now, I'm going to set up another thing. I want to be notified by a webhook whenever the scraper is finished. So I'm going to show you guys how to do this because it's a thing we have to do in Bright Data. We have to set something else up in Bright Data. So I'm going to create a new scenario and I'm going to head back to Bright Data before I add the webhook. I'm going to go back to API Request Builder. And now I'm going to delete all of these again. So you can scrape multiple different accounts at once. You don't only have to scrape one. That's where you just add inputs here and it automatically changes here. Okay, and so now I want to tick send to webhook, right? And now what this is going to do is it's going to send the data that was scraped to a webhook once the scraper has finished. So we need to provide a webhook URL. So this is where I'm going to search in webhook and make.com, custom webhook. I'm going to add a webhook, just name it this, but this is the important thing. You must show advanced settings, scroll down to the bottom, and check JSON pass-through. This is extremely important, you tick that, and then click save. Once you've done that, copy address to clipboard, save this, head back to Bright Data, and paste the webhook directly into here. We can also test the webhook to ensure the connection is good, so we're going to Command Enter to run there. We're going to test the webhook. Test was successful. We can confirm. Yes, we did get a notification, which is good. Now what we can do is this URL has now automatically been updated. So I'm going to recopy this URL, this request URL. You can see it's much longer this time. I'm going to head back to make.com, head into this, and I'm going to show you guys that it looks a little different. We're going to delete this first part once again. So you can see our make.com webhook has been put into this URL. You can see it's here, but it looks a little different, and that's because it's been hard-coded. They don't just paste directly in the webhook, they make it look a little bit different. Right, so this is the helpful thing. We don't have to do this. Fortunately, Bright Data does it for us. And now what's going to happen if we run this, and we run this, now we're going to get a notification to this webhook once the scraper has finished. So let's see, is it running? It's running. So we're going to wait for this to finish running. We can also head back into logs, close this. I like closing this panel because it makes it a bit more viewable for me. And now it's running. We'll let this run away. And what this section is also is all of the different LinkedIn scrapers that you can use. So it's a quick navigation menu, but I always close that. Okay, now it's complete. We should have a notification in make.com. There is the notification. We can see we have a long string of this information, and it is very messy. So very quickly, the way you can format this is simply going to JSON, pass JSON, and then you just simply paste in the value. And then when you click save, next time you run this parts JSON module will output this content in a nice viewable format. So that's what you can do there. Right, and now let's connect to n8n. n8n is a bit easier to do. So let's do the exact same API request builder. We're going to delete all of these. Okay, so now we can head into n8n, where we will need to add an HTTP request. Click HTTP, then the method will be post, and we need a request URL. So this is the exact same as make.com, but this time we can copy this entire curl. You can see it's curl request. You can head back into n8n, click import curl, paste this directly in here, and n8n will automatically configure it for you. Everything is configured, right? And then under authentication, you can also do predefined credential type and then search in Bright Data. And then it's automatically connected, but you don't have to do this because you also get your authorization with the bearer and then your API key from Bright Data here. And also one thing to note with this credential type is you have to install the verified community node. So if you go Bright Data, this is a verified community node that n8n has verified. So you have to install this, and you can do it on the cloud version as well. So it's much easier. You can just simply copy and paste that code and it's already directly in here, right? And then before I do this, I don't actually want to run this. I want to run it with the webhook attached to show you guys how that works as well. So I'm going to add a new workflow in personal. And then here, I'm going to do the exact same thing, webhook. I'm going to make it a post request, as this is what most of them are. The HTTP methods have to align. I'm going to copy this, paste it again into the center webhook in Bright Data, and then I'm going to listen for test event. I'm going to test this webhook. Test was successful. There we get sent with a whole bunch of data on the right hand side here. And that is all we're going to do here. That is all we are going to do. Now, I'm going to come back here, copy this, and paste it back in here, because now we will be added a webhook also. Endpoint with that webhook. This time it's not encoded because it's not in the URL. So, we can do the same thing. Test this. Wait for this webhook. We can go back to web scrapers, see if it's running. It is running. Let's wait for this to finish. And in just a few seconds, let's go to logs. This webhook should be notified. Let's wait here. Takes a second. I think this might be the longest run. We can see here 26, 14, 5 seconds. I might wait for this to finish and then I'll get back to you guys once it's back up. Okay, so the status has is changed to ready in the log section, and the delivery method has been webhook. So let's go back to n8n, and here we can see the webhook has been triggered. So it's this webhook. You don't have to tick any options in n8n like we did in make.com. We just simply add the webhook, and here we can see all of the information. Here we have all the information here of this LinkedIn profile, which is pretty cool. And that is how I build flows out with n8n or make.com and Bright Data. I would send all the information to a webhook once the scraper has finished, and then do whatever I want with it. This is exactly what I do and how I do it. And this is everything I think us as no-coders and low-coders would need to know about Bright Data. It really is an amazing tool, and hope this helps some people out. I found kind of a lack of tutorials for us no and low coders on how to use this tool and how to use it efficiently and work it, really. So hope this helped, and we'll see you in the next one.